Welcome to this show of MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and I'm welcoming back a friend of the show and frequent guest, Ethan, the Wolverine Goss. Ethan, welcome back.
Hey, glad to be here, buddy.
It is always nice catching up with you. I think you're one of, if not the most frequent guest on the show, so I appreciate that. And obviously, we have a lot to catching up to do. So welcome back. For those of us that will be watching, for those of the audience that will be watching, you're eating your dinner. So let's start just a little bit about the schedule of a pro MMA fighter who has multiple jobs, multiple things going on. You were mentioning having to train at night, having to eat late in the evening. How does that all work out for you?
Everything works out for me pretty well. Everybody kind of lets me work around that schedule. But I'm usually up by, I try to be up by 6 in the morning. I'm self-employed now. I work with me and my dad run an excavating business together. And so I try to get up as early as I can get up, and I go to work all day long. You know what I mean? There's some days you're in the garage, some days unexpected things happen, machine breaks down or something. You plan on being on a job site doing something, but you got to go back to the garage and do something. And so I do that all day long until, I leave my house around 5, I believe, and I go to the gym. I normally get there around 5:30, 5:45, and we start training from 6 to 8. And then I get home, and sometimes we kind of hang out a little late there at the gym, bullshitting and stuff like that. And I end up getting home at like 9, sometimes later at 9. So I always got to eat a late dinner. That's what I'm doing now. Always got to eat a late dinner. If I don't eat it when it's hot, I get yelled at.
Well, hey, as she should. Yeah, as she should. The cook wants you to eat it while it's hot. Well, that's great. That also goes to show more of the behind the scene that fighters have to do, either for themselves or have somebody who's preparing meals at what ends up being odd hours and things like that. So we last caught up with you going into your November fight. The 247 Fighting Championships was doing a card right before Thanksgiving. It ended up being a short outing for you, and I'm sure disappointing given the fact that you got caught in a choke, a standing guillotine, if I remember correctly. And I talked to you a little bit afterwards. I know it was disappointing for you. I don't think you were hurt or anything in that fight. It went, pretty short as far as all that goes. So what was it like for you recapping that fight back in November?
It was a tough loss.
Yeah.
Just because, I made a mistake. I made a mistake in there, and I, paid the price for it. But and it was a mistake that I know that 9 out of 10 times I don't make. You know what I mean? But hats off to Haze for catching it. I also believe that if I was going to shoot 10 shots, I think he was going to pull that guillotine 10 times. So no matter what, I was going to be in, I was going to be in deep waters in that situation there. But I've trained long enough. I've been doing this long enough. I know what to do. I know how to get out of it. I just didn't do it. But that's the way it goes, man. That's what happens. I can't beat myself up too many times, over losses, because it's lessons learned is all it is.
Sure.
So we just went back to the gym, back to the drawing board, and started working on it. And that's definitely a fight down the road. I wouldn't mind getting back, maybe string out a couple wins here. And John's signed the Bellator, so maybe the 45-pound title can be on the line next time. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, like you mentioned, it's a good process. It can be a tough process, of course, but it's a good process. You're a very experienced fighter with a lot of great fights against a lot of great opponents. You won some, you lost some, and one of the things is to learn and continue to develop. Plus, as you yourself just mentioned, you had fought for the belt at 247. John ended up winning. He's now in Bellator. And so 247 tends to be keeping you busy. I think you've fought 3 or 4 fights, I think, for that.
Three. This will be number 4.
This will be 4. Yeah.
Yep.
This will be 4. So pretty exciting, I think, for you. And I know I say this gym a lot, which is a great thing. Gorilla House Gym in Altoona is a gym where you're at, as well as obviously I have Cam Algar on the show a lot, and Sid Ross, and they're both fighting for amateur belts. And so you've got a lot going on in that gym, I'm sure. And it's kind of nice that 247 Fighting Championship has become sort of a mainstay for your gym to come out. It kind of gives, I think it helps 247, it helps you guys. So it's pretty exciting. Given, and I know it can almost seem like a weird question, but I know you've had an experienced pro career as well as an amateur career. Did you ever fight before no crowd other than November? And for the brief time you were in there, what was that like coming out? And I'm pretty sure I cheered, but I remember it being weird. There was maybe 10 people in the whole building, or at least in the fight area. And when fighters would come out, I was like, yay, because there was no noise. They'd be announced, it'd be like, chirp, 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 chirp. So what was that? Was that weird? Was it strange for you?
That was different. That was definitely a first. I've had, I mean, this will be my this one coming up will be my 23rd fight, I think. But I've never had no crowd.
Yes.
That was the first time doing that. But it also felt like it was a mini crowd, because all the fighters were there and all their coach corners were there, and guys that didn't have to start getting ready or were done already fighting were still, we're still hanging out and oohing and on every time something happened, you know what I mean? So it was kind of like there was a crowd, but there wasn't at the same time. So, but that was different.
It is different. And you're kind of right about that. I've been to some regional shows out east, which, not to say names, but I've been to a couple MMA shows with maybe 50 people in the crowd, legitimately, like that's what the crowd had. And it kind of had that feel where it was a very active, the people that were there, because they were all fight specific, coaches, trainers, fighters, announcers. Like you had people there, but they were all specific to the event. And obviously a big deal for all of MMA, but also in Pennsylvania for 247 is that they're going to be able to have, I think it's a percentage of the crowd, but it'll be a crowd. I don't know the exact size. I know you guys have just started selling tickets, and I brought this up on another thing. I encourage all fans, if you're going to come out to a fight in person, buy your tickets through a fighter. It helps them out quite a bit. And it also shows the promoter which fighters are having fans and which fighters kind of have the bigger draw. So I knew you are very experienced as pro, and you also have a lot of amateurs. So 23 fights into your career, what is still exciting about MMA? What still is something you're learning or enjoying about going to the gym and continuing to train there at Gorilla House?
Exciting. The exciting part, it's just the thrill of the competition. It really is. I mean, you got to be a competitor to be in this game. Somebody lands a good shot on you, you got to want to land a better one back. And with having these young bucks come up like Cam and Sydney and Sheldon and these guys that are coming up through that are fighting and stuff, having them come up and get better and better and better and better, give you the push and push and push, to be better yourself. And that's that. So like motivation never really is a problem for me. I just love what I do. So, and you love what you do, there ain't nothing hard about it. But what was the other part of the question?
So you love what you do. So obviously that's the reason why. What is the more recent exciting thing or something that besides loving it that you're enjoying about the current process?
I mean, really just I really enjoy seeing the younger guys, advance. So you see Cam's doing some pretty good things. I mean, Sydney came in and took the show by storm right off the bat. And, everybody knows the hype's real on Sydney, but now you see Cam coming, and the kid started out, he's 4-0 now. He actually obviously you just talked to him the other day. He went down to CFFC.
Yep.
And he fought their big gun they had.
Yeah.
Christian Bobby. And that's one thing I told Cam, because they actually reached out to me, wanting to know if I had anybody, and I gave them the weights of the people I had, and they said, well, we could use this guy at 140. And of course, Cam's one of them ones that he's not turning down a fight.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll fight on a week's notice. It's just how he is. But and I told Cam going into it, I said, there's no easy fights for them. I mean, they have their people, and that's who they want you to fight, and that's pretty much how it's going to be. And you got to go down there and you're going to swim with the sharks. And damn, that kid went down there and put on a show. You know what I mean? But and he's everybody knows he's a grappler. Everybody knows he's good wrestling, good grappler. But nobody's talking about how he put Bobby on his ass with that first punch he landed. You know what I mean? So the kid's coming along. The kid's got power in his hands. The kid's striking's coming along. So I think you're going to see all that, come here in a couple of weeks.
Well, and that's one of the things. It'll be a great title fight, and that's a good title fight that 247 had originally put together on the November card, and then things came up and the card couldn't happen. But fortunately, it's the same fighters. Still a big fight in the Pittsburgh, as Cam was saying. He sees it as a true belt, in the sense that it really does matter who wins that fight. Sometimes belts, particularly amateur, may not have a lot, but they're two good fighters at that weight class in the Pittsburgh area, and it will matter to both as far as their career goes. It's another thing. I know Cam was talking about Coach Darren Cassidy being the striking coach, and I would think he's your striking coach as well. How is it? How long has he been the coach there? How long have you been working with him? What's kind of the process of you striking with Coach Darren?
I actually met Darren. I want to say it's probably close to 5 years ago. He had an amateur kid that fought on one of Pinnacle's shows, and he was they weren't real far from where we were at. I was under Dignan Broomball then at the time, and I told the kid that, because I was there at the show that night. I think I was cornering Charlie Gathers in a pro fight, and I told the kid that I would come down and, hey, I'll come down and work with you a little bit. So I went down, and I got there, and they were like kind of doing warm up sparring. So like one of the things with Darren is like we warm up with sparring, but it's a flow spar. You know what I mean? And it's not. We're just lightly moving around. It's nothing crazy. But they were doing that, and Darren said to me, of course I never met this guy. I didn't know him at the time. But Darren said to me, he said, hey, you want to get a warm up round in with me first? And I knew he wanted me to go in there with him, because he wanted to see what I was about. You know what I mean? So I went in and worked with Darren, and I think I earned Darren's respect right off the bat, from the first time I met him. And it wasn't until after we were there for, I don't know, we were probably at Gorilla House for maybe a year. So I'd say he's probably been there close to 3 years now with us. He come in, because they do like kids wrestling programs and stuff there, and I think that's what he was coming in for. Ray talked to him, and he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "Yeah, I work with those guys." He's like, "I ain't teaching no classes though. I don't teach classes. I'm just gonna work with the fighters." And so since then, it's been, pretty much 2 to 3 days a week. I train with Darren. Sydney trains with Darren. Basically all the fighters, Cam, Sheldon, whoever's got something coming up, and they're working with Darren, and we work constantly. If we don't got any fights, we're still working. The whole time when COVID was hitting, we were still coming in, and we were still training. But Darren runs a very, very good program. He's a very good coach, and he's a stern coach. Like if you're messing up, you better prepare to get yelled at. You know what I mean? If you got soft feelings, Darren ain't your coach. He's going to call you names, and he's going to run you in the dirt until you get it right. And he'll just keep working with you until you get it. Like he'll get frustrated with you, but he will keep working with you until you get it. But he's so good at, having a plan for what to do. You know what I mean? Especially for coming into fights. He's good at figuring out like the stand up part of the plan. and he's good at, setting the plan for the practices and running the practice and what we're going to do. So.
Well, that's really good. And it's a good feedback from you, because that would have been later into your pro career that you got connected to him. And so it always shows your willingness to learn and how coaches have to click with the fighters and vice versa, and how all that goes down. Something Cam brought up, which I wanted to run past you. Susie said it, I'm like, oh, that's a great thing to bring up. But he was saying how, and it's true at the UFC level, how a lot of the big gyms, a lot of the fighters that used to train at big gyms are finding smaller gyms, or I should say more focused gyms. It's not necessarily that they're small, it's just that they're more focused. And I was giving the example of Jason Whitman, the coach, who's a pretty well-known coach, but he only coaches 3 UFC fighters now.
Trevor Whitman.
Oh, wait.
You said Jason. Trevor Whitman. Yeah.
Made up names. Maybe he has a brother. He has a brother. No, but Trevor Whitman. I should have just said coach, and then I would have been in the clear. But yeah, and it was interesting because one of the embeddeds pointed out that he only coaches Rose, who of course the champ now, and how exciting that is, and Usman, who's the champ, and then also Gaethje, and how those are the only 3 athletes. And it was kind of interesting because that's kind of breaking the mold back to what it was 10 years ago when all these huge gyms came out. So it's pretty exciting stuff as far as that goes.
And I agree with that. You see the small gyms, kind of making a comeback now. Normally almost every fighter in the game has came from the small gym. You know what I mean? John Jones came from a hole in the wall gym in New York, was where he started. All these guys come from, majority of them come from small gyms until they got big, and the whole scene in the MMA world kind of expanded and stuff. But I agree with Cam in the sense that, like, you're getting undivided attention. You're getting all the eyes are on you, or all the preparations on you. You know what I mean? For you to go out and do what you need to do. But the problem with the small gyms is having competitive goes.
Yeah.
And that's where they get in trouble. Now, if you're in an area where, you're from a small gym, but you're able to reach out not too far and get, competitive goes, perfect. That's great. You know what I mean? Like, Kama, for example, coming from the academy, it's a smaller gym, but man, Pittsburgh's loaded with talent, and Kama's training there. He's training stout. He's going to Mat Factory. And which I recently just started. I went down Sunday to Mat Factory, and I'll be going back down every Sunday up to the fight.
Oh, great.
So, and that was part of my problem. It was nothing against my teammates, but I'm competing at a higher region, at the highest regional pro level, and they're at the amateur level. Like I said, nothing against them, but we're just at different levels. You know what I mean? Well, when I'm training with a lot of these guys, I'm not getting the level of pushback, a lot of the times that I would be if I was out there training with Kama or John DeJesus or, guys like that.
And I think that's a big part of your skill set is you analyze things very well. You realize that you needed to do things a little bit differently while still keeping your home gym, while still keeping the connections, but recognizing that you need better, like you said, competitive goes. You mentioned John DeJesus. Have you actually done competitive goes with him post your title fight that you had against each other?
Just Sunday.
Just the Sunday?
Yeah. Him and I trained together for the first time. We did some grappling. We did some striking. He's still fast on the feet. I'll give him that.
He's fast. Yeah. So how was that, given the fact that that's somebody obviously that was an opponent? And how did that work out for you?
Oh, it was perfectly fine. When you fight somebody, it's weird unless you really have some kind of disgust towards that person. You have a mutual respect for that person, whether you beat them or they beat you, one way or the other. You guys both do the same thing. Obviously, you both had the same interest, so you kind of earn that respect for one another. And John and I were totally cool with each other. No, we got a decent amount of work in together while we was out there. But working with him's only going to make me better, and I'd like to think it would make him better.
Absolutely. I mean, you referenced yourself just a little bit ago. Ethan, saying that like you're at the top of the regional MMA level. You are. I mean, you fought for a belt. Obviously, John was, probably still is, but Bellator, I would say, is outside of the regional level. So he's at the next level, but still, like, absolutely. And it's a big deal to be able to have the sparring and the interaction. I'm glad that the Mat Factory is close enough for you for Sundays to get extra work in those competitive goes. And I think that'll be something hopefully that works for you. Now, speaking of competition, and you're always looking to compete, you're always looking to compete against good talent. You're going up against your opponent here, May 22nd, and he is a well-journeyed, right around 500 record as well, well-journeyed, good experience. I'd say right around the same number of pro fights. So what do you expect from him, or what are you looking for him coming in to this fight, given the fact that he's been a fairly well-experienced regional fighter as well?
I'm expecting a fight. You know what I mean? I'm expecting we're gonna go out there and we're gonna do it. He, I know something about him. I know he was a Division I state champion out of Wisconsin.
Oh wow, okay.
A wrestler.
Yeah.
So, and I know he's done kickboxing fights, and I know he's worked a lot of boxing and stuff like that. So it's gonna be a fun go for sure. I feel fully confident, fully prepared that everything's gonna go the way it should go for me. So, and it's going to be a fight. And I've said it time and time again. One of us is getting our asses whooped. Let's just hope it's me. No, let's hope it's me. I'm sorry.
Let's hope it's Matt. That's what you got to say. Let's hope it's Matt. There you go. I'll edit it. Just kidding. I won't be editing it. That's hilarious. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think that's one of the things that comes out of your career is you always show up in fights. You're always going to put your best into a fight. And that's what I think makes your development. And for me, watching you now, these last 3 fights, is you continue to want to get better. And for Matt, Gaffney. Matt Gaffney.
Yeah.
And I think he's probably in the same boat, being a guy that wants to continue to develop his career. It's always exciting. I think the regional MMA, and of course I'm biased because I'm very involved at 247, but regional MMA literally creates Bellator, UFC, those type of promotions. So when people really like those high promotions and they're great, regional MMA produced that. And there was an MMA group, NAAFS. Did you ever fight for them out in Ohio?
No, I've been to their shows. I was there to corner people and stuff, but I actually never fought for NAAFS.
They're no longer in existence. I'm bringing them up because I would think their most successful person is Stipe Miocic. I mean, he had all of his 6 pro fights prior to the UFC with them. And I had a friend who fought for one of their titles years ago around the same time. So I went to a couple of their fights. But again, that's a regional promotion that we know Stipe Miocic. I mean, I love him as who he is as a person, what he's done.
Jessica I came from there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Daniel Spawn, a lot of them all fought there.
And I know, and bringing it back to 247, I know that's where Ryan's taking 247 with already 2 successful champions, one in the UFC and one in Bellator. I know that's what he sees it as, and probably even bigger than NAAFS. Not trying to say that Ryan wants to stop there. I'm sure Ryan wants to even go more, but fighters would not exist at the UFC level without successful regional runs, and that's what's so important and significant. So getting to what prediction or what goal you have for this fight, let's get to that, as May 22nd is now 3.5 weeks away.
Oh man, I predict a win.
Sure.
I definitely feel a win coming for sure. How I do it, that you'll just have to wait and find out.
Can't wait.
Like I said, we got a game plan. We got everything figured out, and I feel very confident. I like the matchup. I think Gaffney's a tough dude. You know, he's a game guy, and I obviously never really shied away from a tougher fight. That's my kind of fight. So whether it's a knockdown, drag out war, or whether it's I get it done quick, one way or another, I'm going to get it done.
Well, it's one of the reasons why I love your nickname as the Wolverine, because that is that mindset. It's you want to win regardless. You have great style, but you also can make it a kind of a gross, bloody fight if it needs to be. I still remember you continuing to fight with a broken hand or finger, I think, and you were like, I want to keep fighting, you know. So you're that type of fighter, which is a beautiful thing. And I think there's something to be said for your mindset and attitude coming in this fight. I can't wait for May 22nd. Now, given the fact that this is a doubleheader show, which I'm going to guess is the first time you've ever been on a doubleheader show in the same day, I don't think that's relatively common.
Yeah.
What do you think about that going into fight where it's a doubleheader show? Are you looking forward to watching the other fights on the other event, or kind of what are you planning to do? The fact that it's back-to-back cards.
I mean, it's definitely, I'd never been on one before. I mean, obviously a lot of shows would have, they would have a show Friday night, a show Saturday night, and, you know, and they call them double headers, but this is the first 2 in one day.
Real, yeah.
I will be, as far as I know, I will be main eventing the early show.
Okay.
Which starts at 1 p.m.
1 o'clock.
Which
yeah.
I kind of liked, because by the time that I'll probably be, you know, going out to fight is right around the time that I normally get ready to start training every day. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
my body's already obviously immune to working out, you know, in the middle of or later afternoon. So that I kind of felt, you know, I was like, I don't mind being on the early show. But one of the things that I offered, which I'm sure they probably never let happen, was because they seem to be having a hard time finding an opponent for Haze. I said, well, I will, if I go out and beat Gaffney, I said, I'd show up at 7 p.m. and fight Haze. I said, be the first fighter in Pittsburgh to fight twice in one day. You know what I mean? Make some history here.
You literally define the heart of a fighter. There's no doubt. And of course, 25 years ago, that's what MMA was.
Absolutely.
It was always multiple fights in the same night. I'd say that was standard for a while. Yeah.
You know, when I was coming up through the amateur ranks, it was, you know, fight anybody, anytime, any place, anywhere. And, you know, it's kind of the same thing like Cam and them are doing. I fought twice in 10 days once. I mean, legally, you have to have 14 days rest in between.
Right.
And Serb let it go. You know, I won in Altoona, had a dominant fight, won in Altoona, and went out to Pittsburgh 10 days later and fought for the championship. And that was how my name got put out there. You know, I know they were having trouble finding a fight for Cole Masick there, the 185-pound amateur champ. Yeah. Man, I don't get these amateur guys that are afraid to take tough fights. Like, I just don't understand it. Like, that's what you should be doing. You should be fighting these tough SOBs out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get that experience so you know what it's like before you turn to go pro, if you plan on going pro. So, but I would be 100% down and into it if Serb would approve it. I'm telling you wholeheartedly, I would fight Gaffney at 1 p.m., beat him, and I would go on and fight Haze in a rematch at 7 p.m.
That is the greatest quote I think I'll ever get from you. I know it's sincere, and I know that's the type of fighter you are. I think that would be usually those double fights are because of tournaments, because it would be hard for Haze to be ready to fight, you know, nobody potentially or you. I'm sure that's tough. But what you were saying about, and pros the same way, I think it's always important for fans to know that regional fighting is tough for fighters who are doing well. You've had stretches, but you're doing very well. People don't want to fight you. The amateur stuff, both. I mean, you're kind of spoiled by having such great amateurs. Cam and Sid both take fights that they could potentially lose, you know, and they take competitive fights. And Sid has an absolute pro mindset already, as an amateur, and she was telling me such in my interview with her, because she's constantly going at girls that are tough, that other people don't want to fight. Same thing with Cam, of course. And a shout out to anybody to, step up and fight Cole Masick. Obviously, that's the type of fights. If anybody thinks they're going to go pro and are afraid to fight an undefeated amateur, who do you think are in pro?
Yeah.
My goodness,
Yeah. I've seen it way too many times. You know what I mean? Kids pad the records and stuff, and they come in as 11-1 amateur, 10-0 amateur, and then they go out there and they go, 0-3 as a pro. It's a whole different ball game. I mean, take it from me. I had a tough amateur career. Won a lot, lost some, went out, started my pro career 0-2. So I had my back against the wall right off the bat. So I had to bounce back from. And and I did what I was supposed to do. So you have these guys that pad the records, and then they go out there to the real world and they step in there with the Lions. Like I said, because there's no easy fights as a pro. Everybody, if you're enough to become a professional athlete and step in a cage and fight another man or female, you're one of the 0.1%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're that 0.1% that's out there.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly. Well, you are very much a 0.1%. You might even be a 0.1% of the 0.1% in your mindset and willingness to train. Can't wait to see you in action. For everybody, get your tickets to come out and see Ethan the Wolverine Goss May 22nd. And what I've been saying on every interview, for people that are going to come in person, make it a day, make it a full day, get both tickets. There'll be tons of fighters on each card. So there's going to be title fights. Each card is pro on each card, great fights. Each card, it's really close to a mall. I think that's the place to go to get dinner in between the fights. And I think it'll be really great. So thanks so much for coming on. Can't wait to see you get back in there, and all the best wishes to you.
Yep, it's a great venue. Good show. 24/7 is doing good things. So anybody that's interested, anybody local that's interested, wants to buy, I got tickets. You can get them right from me. Anybody
you selling them out of the gym? You selling them out of the gym?
Yeah, there's some being sold out of the gym. I have some in my hands personally. Sid has some, Cam has some. You know what I mean? If you're in the Altoona area, buy tickets from one of us. It don't matter who it is. You support one of us, you support all of us.
Yep.
But it's going to be a good show. I plan on giving you a hell of a show. I never try to have a boring fight, but we're going to go out there and do what we got to do. I thank you for, having me on the show again. It's always a pleasure. It's always fun to talk to you.
Well, you're welcome, and a big thanks to you. And can't wait to see you in action May 22nd. Best wishes to you. Ethan the Wolverine Goss.